Okay, David, where the fuck that is right there? McIntirely full of shit. Shouldn't be giving reviews about rocks. He doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. This here's a KMB-20. This is a little older model. It does have the, I'm highlighting this, idle adjustment screw. Yeah, if he doesn't have one of those, he might accidentally shut off his airplane. Well, David, if you do that, don't fly around yourself or other people because you're a danger to everybody. Now, KMB, this here is what I like to call the Everyman Engine. They came out in the late 80s. You could go to a hobby shop and buy 3 of these versus one OS. They're pretty simple. There's no bearings. It does have an aluminum gasketed head, which if leaks, like he says his does, which I don't think it does because it was pretty pink coming out the back of the head. These do shoot gas out of the carburetor or fuel. The prop he had on that plane or engine was a little big, and that can cause that to happen as well. I think he said he had a 9.6 or something on there. Something you'd put on a 40 size engine. But this screw right here that he's all concerned about because they don't have it, if you notice mine does not have the remote needle valve. This screw is misnamed because if you still use this screw within the last 25 years to adjust your idle, you're a goddamn idiot. And I'll show you why. Here's another KMB right here. This is a KMB 28, which is basically the same thing. But see, here's a screw. We're going to take that out of there. See, there it is right there. Take that out. You know, this should be named barrel retention screw because that's what it does. It keeps the barrel of the carburetor in. Okay? You can use it to set your idle, which I don't know anybody that does. But most manufacturers have gotten away with this because, well, ever since the mid-90s, radios have been pretty good. Before that, you needed something like this. But since the late 80s, early 90s, you haven't. Now, I fly 72 megahertz and 2.4, but this is a JR SX600. I think it came out in the 9. Look at all the buttons on here. You can do shit with all these. And look, here's one that says throttle cut. So if you have your idle screw set to where your idle can't go to shut off, well, that button is no good, and then you got to pinch the fuel line or, you know, throw a rag in the prop. And, you know, some of that stuff can be a problem if you have a cowl on your airplane. Anyway, I do have this on a tripod. Now again, this guy here, he shouldn't be giving reviews on rocks. He'd find a stripe in it or something that wasn't right. Or fucking gold. It'd be the wrong color. You fucking idiot. Give your guy a camera and you're a fucking expert. Okay, back to the engine. Like I was saying, this was like an everyman's engine. They're not a fancy engine, they're a simple engine. There's no bearings, it's just a race. The head, there is no sleeve in these engines. It's just piston and cylinder, no steel sleeve. And like I said, there's an aluminum gasket up here. And if your engine's leaking out the back, it's because David took it apart, and he knows as much about taking the engine apart as he does running one, and even less so about putting it back together. But like I said, this is a KMB-20. I don't know, I've had it for a while. No complaints about it whatsoever. It was a leader, you know. After this, OS actually came out with their FP series, you know, basically the same engine. But let's run it. Let's see what we get here. Alright, turn everything on. Okay, he couldn't flip start his KMB. That's fucking terrible. Now, it's very important to remember that these engines, you know, they really count on air and fuel mixture. If you put your finger over this and plug your muffler pipe up, well, guess what? You'll probably flood the engine out, and you're going to flip it for 20 minutes until you get most of the fuel out of there because the air and the fuel mixture have to be pretty close to right for it to fire. It's amazing. I think it's a new concept. I should patent that. Alright, here we go. Now, when you're flip starting an engine, I got this tied off. I like to open it up about a quarter of the way. And I don't never really prime it. I'm just going to flip it. If it doesn't start, then I'll prime it. Now see, you get the air mixture in there, and it'll flip start. It's amazing. Now watch what happens here when I push this button. Look at that, it's shut off. It's a fucking miracle. Anybody that's using that idle set screw to this day, in the last 25 years, is a fucking idiot. Most engine manufacturers have gotten away from them because they are useless. Everything's done by the radio now. And this is a 72 megahertz, 20-year-old radio. Again, we'll flip start it up here. Open the throttle about quarter way. You know, air mixture, fuel mixture, very important. You try to flip start an engine at an idle, you're going to have a hell of a time. As we can see, no fuel coming around the head. There's some strain out of the carburetor, which is to be expected. Push the button, it shuts off. Not complicated. Now, with all that, and this is an SX600, it's an old radio, K&B motor, pretty much the same thing he has, except this does not have remote needle valve. I think the newer ones are a little better than the older ones, but there's nothing wrong with the older ones if you can buy a 20, 28, 40, 45, 65, 61, 60. K&B makes a good engine. It's actually Nokia. They're out in California. They're still in production. You can go to their website. Just Google K&B model engines. It'll come up. Shut this off. And as far as this David what the fuck's his name again? McIntirely full of shit. If there was fuel leaking out the back of his head, I have seen that happen. Not just on a K&B, on all engines. It's because he took it apart and he didn't put it back together properly, or he scratched, kinked, or something. It's a simple system. A lot of engines will have a sleeve that goes in there, and it's a little more complicated. These are two flat surfaces with an aluminum gasket, kind of just like a Cox. Cox is recessed though, but that's the only difference. In Cox uses a brass gasket. This is aluminum. Nothing really can go wrong with these engines. There's like 3-4 moving parts. There's needle valve, crankshaft, piston rod, and piston. That's it. I'm making a video. But we'll start it up one more time. Again, open the throttle a quarter way. Gotta remember, this is an internal combustion engine. It needs air and fuel. Okay, now at that point, I will put a little fuel in the engine because it was hot and it sat. It probably cooked off all the nitro. And I like to do it with a fuel bulb because then I can know what's getting in it. Look at that. That button is amazing. If you use this idle set screw to set your low idle, you're an idiot. Because you can't shut off your engine from your transmitter. In the gas world, you actually are not allowed to do that. It's against the AMA rules. But on your 2-strokes, you should turn that up. I actually put a little serviceable Loctite blue on it, put it up high enough to where the barrel won't come out, but I can close the carburetor from my transmitter. So when I'm done flying and I taxi up to me at the airfield, I can push that button and it shuts off. Now, if yours doesn't have this little black button that says engine cut, you can bind this button to it, any button, any one of them. This one, any of them. Then another thing I usually like to do is I never leave fuel in my fuel tank. And I always like to, I'm going to turn everything back on now. Open the carburetor up quarter way and shut everything off. Not so much these engines, because it's not a bearinged engine, it's not a ringed engine. There's not that much steel in it. It's just a crankshaft that's pretty much the steel that'll rust. This model airplane fuel is pretty corrosive. Especially in a bearing engine, you don't want to leave it sit inside the engine, because it will rust things. So, I'm not expecting it to start. It might pop over a couple times, but I ain't expecting it to start. There we go. Okay, now I know there's no nitro in there anymore. I just burned it off. I'll be right back. I gotta grab something. I forgot to bring something up from the shop. This stuff here is kind of important. After-run oil. You don't have to use oil. I've had this bottle for, I don't know, years. And it's basically got automatic transmission fluid in it, Dextron. It's the same stuff you're going to buy in this bottle, but you're going to pay for this what you could get a whole quart for. Dextron transmission fluid is a really good rust inhibitor. It's what comes in this. So put a couple drops in your engine. Flip it over. And what that's going to do, and a lot of times what I'll do is I'll close the barrel of the carburetor, put a drop in there, open and close the carburetor. That way there, if the plane sits for a year or two or whatever, you don't come back and the carburetor's froze up and your bearings are all rusted and your crankshaft's all rusted and it turns over like a bag of hammers. You just do that every time you get done running it. The engine should last forever and keep it out of the dirt. Now, David, McIntirely full of shit. I don't know what your story is. You started off with your video. Well, I haven't owned a K&B in 20 years. Were you even alive 20 years ago? If you can find these motors, they are inexpensive. Do the break-in process. Put the correct peller on it, not a 9.6. A 9.6 is for a 40 size engine, not a 20. You can use electric starter on it. You can see that I have. When I go to the airfield, I'm a modern guy, man. I got a smartphone and I got an electric starter. You can see that it has pretty good compression. K&B makes a good motor. They're not in the hobby shops anymore, but they're still in production in California. They're American made. And like I said, if you Google K&B model engines, it'll come up, and, or you get on eBay or anywhere else, you can find these engines. I will post this video shortly. Any questions, just feel free to ask. Good little motor. I mean, I didn't pay $700 for it. I don't expect $700 of performance for it. Now, David, I got it written down over here. David McIntirely full of shit. Stop giving reviews. You suck at it.